It's time to play our favorite game on the show. This is touchdown or turnover. The basic premise here is one of us will give the other a statement as if it's fact, and we will have to say touchdown or turnover. Touchdown means we agree, we believe that statement is true. Turnover means we disagree, we believe that statement is false. Before we go any further, like the video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it. We're trying to grow an audience and build a family. Old school water cooler football talk with comedy. We don't take ourselves too seriously. Let's get into it. The Colts would be more successful if Joe Flacco was their starting quarterback. Touchdown or turnover?
Touchdown all the way, baby. Look, you put a guy like Anthony Richardson, who's averaging 2 interceptions a game over the last 3 games, 6 interceptions in 3 football games is unacceptable if you're this generational star. And by the way, he got hurt today, came back in with an aggravated hip. And instead of the coaching staff saying, hey, let's sit him, they said, let's just hope he gets hurt again. And let's put Flacco in. Because when Flacco came in, threw an immediate touchdown, got the game back on the game script, and then also didn't throw interceptions and had a pretty decent game for an old man. He won the football game. He defeated the Steelers, who were undefeated. I think that this team has a chance now that they have Joe Flacco. Let's not forget that he's just 1 year removed from taking the Browns to the playoffs. Like, he did it. So I think Joe Flacco is still your best bet. Instead of Anthony Richardson, you need to sit him on your bench. He's not a good quarterback. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback, but we also only have a handful of games to sample of him because he was hurt all last year. Sit him, let him learn under Flacco, and maybe in the next year or two, you start him and hope that he can be an NFL franchise quarterback like you are grooming him to be. That's my opinion.
I don't have anything to add. Couldn't agree with you more. I picked the Colts to make the playoffs. I feel way better about that when Joe Flacco's the quarterback and Shane Steichen's running a real NFL offense. I agree. Richardson, he makes some wild plays, but most of the time he leaves you scratching your head. I agree completely.
All right, Tristan, you're up now. CJ Stroud is hiding the fact that the Texans are just a mediocre football team.
Oh.
Touchdown or turnover?
It's a touchdown. Doesn't mean that the Texans can't go far. It doesn't mean that they can't improve. Right now, they are kind of a mediocre football team. They are 17th in points per game scored, 20th in points per game allowed. Nut statistics that really scream Super Bowl to you. If you watch the game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Jaguars were stomped by Buffalo last week. We were literally saying they needed to fire everyone, including the interns. This week, they almost beat Houston. Houston sometimes can't get out of their own way. I will credit you. You said it earlier, and you're right. The Joe Mixon injury is a big deal. Like, losing him definitely affects the offense. But also, we can't keep overlooking how poorly this offensive line is playing. Like, 1, they're playing poorly, and 2, the amount of penalties are ridiculous. It seems like every time they have a big play or a big positive play, holding, coming back, it's constant. I didn't look up this stat. I wish I would have. They have to be one of the most penalized offenses in the league. CJ Stroud, on the other hand, is elite, and he's bailing them out of a lot of bad situations. He is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. The defense also doesn't feel like it's quite as good as it was last year, but I'm not as worried about them. I'm just more worried about the consistency on offense. Maybe if they got Joe Mixon back, I would feel different. But right now, when you're middle of the pack and points scored, points allowed, I think it's true. I think they're a mediocre team, but you've got an elite quarterback, so that elevates you immediately.
3rd most penalized team in the NFL. So you were right on the money with that. And then also, I do think Joe Mixon makes a huge impact, but you also got to look at their schedule and see who they've beaten. It's the Colts, the Bears, and the Jags now. So where do you hang your hat? Like, and by the way, all these games were super close. 29-27, 19-13 against the Bears, 24-20 today against the Jags, who looked like one of the worst teams in the NFL for the past 3 weeks. So, and then, by the way, the Vikings stomped them 34-7. So when you play these really talented teams, next week you got to go to Buffalo and play them. Or I'm sorry, you play Buffalo at home. Thank God for you. The Texans have a shot at, being embarrassed at home, I think, by the Bills. I think that will happen. It seems like when they play these good defenses, it's just a train wreck, man.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, CJ Stroud is able to pull him out of a lot of it. The question is, how long can he keep that up? we'll see. I do think they're still a good team. I think they can still be a playoff team, but they have a lot to clean up, as do a lot of teams. All right, next one. Ryan, the Bengals, we left them for dead, but here's your question, your statement. The win over the Panthers, it is proof that the Cincinnati Bengals are turning things around, touchdown or turnover.
I'm going to go turnover here, man. I don't think that this is proof enough for me because, look, they only won by 10 points, okay, against the Panthers and Andy Dalton. And I know that the Panthers are definitely improved from Bryce Young, but I still think that to feel comfortable and feel like you're turning a new leaf, that you're going on the right path, that you're starting down the golden road, so to speak, you need to beat the Panthers comfortably. And I don't think this was a comfortable win for them. At some points in the game, you thought that the Panthers were going to get back into it. Like, at any point in the game, did you feel confident that the Bengals had it in the bag?
No, not at all. I was actually worried at how close Carolina kept it all game.
So to me, when you have Joe Burrow going 22 of 31 and throwing an interception, throwing for 2 touchdowns, yeah, we saw that Jamar Chase is a monster. Everybody knew that. That's old news. I still think this defense has a lot to learn, and I don't think that this is the game I'm going to hang my hat on and say, hey, the Bengals are here. They're 1-3 now, Tristan. It's not like that's a huge accomplishment, and their one win is against the Panthers.
Right. Man, I think you're right. Again, not writing them off completely, but the 0-3 start, hard to overcome, especially when they lost to Jaden Daniels. And it's not Joe Burrow. Like, a lot of people are saying Joe Burrow's playing bad. Maybe they're not fantastic. They obviously don't have the run game they had in the past, but the offense is fine. The offense is putting up points every week. It's the defense. Ryan, the Cincinnati defense, 26th in points per game allowed. They allow the most points in the only teams that allow more points than Cincinnati: Dallas, Tennessee, Arizona, Jacksonville, the Rams, and Carolina. That's bad company, especially for a defensive coordinator in Lou Anarumo that we think is one of the best in the league. The defensive roster is just not up to it this year. I don't know where the Bengals go from here, but I'm with you. I agree that it's a turnover.
All right, Tristan, you're next up on touchdown or turnover. The Eagles are just dealing with the injury bug, and they're actually much better than they look whenever you watch them on a Sunday afternoon. Touchdown or turnover?
Because of us recording this after week 4, I'm going to say touchdown. They're better than they looked against Tampa Bay. You're missing A.J. Brown and you're missing Devontae Smith. What do you got then? I mean, that's their entire receiving core. You have Dallas Goedert left. I don't think the Eagles are true Super Bowl contenders. I think they're a little too all over the place, and mainly I don't trust Nick Sirianni. But when you look at them just getting dominated by Tampa Bay, I don't think that happens if they have their pass catchers there. If A.J. Brown can get healthy, if Devontae Smith can clear concussion protocol, the Eagles' offense is going to be dangerous again. Yeah, Jalen Hurts is a little erratic. They're not what they were 2 years ago, but they're still a legit NFC contender. I think they looked worse today because of the injury bug. For sure, this one's a touchdown.
Completely agree with you, man. I think that once you have Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown back, you do have a much improved offense. And I think this offense is really where they lose a lot of their football games here recently. If you can't score points, kind of hard to win a football game.
Who would have thought? All right, Dallas, the Cowboys, they haven't looked how a lot of people expected, although I think they look exactly how me and you expected. This is an interesting one. Dallas, their next 2 games are against the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Detroit Lions. Ryan, they're going to lose both of them. Touchdown or turnover?
That's a big touchdown from me, Tristan. I don't trust this Dallas team further than I can throw them. And last time I checked, I have trouble carrying the groceries up the steps. So that's not far in case you were keeping score. Dallas has lost their 2 biggest defensive players with DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
They're going to be out for the next 2 weeks at least with sprains of some sort. High ankle sprain, I think, to Micah Parsons, and some other sprain, foot sprain or something like that to DeMarcus Lawrence.
I know Lawrence's was more severe.
Yeah, than they even anticipated, right? But I think both of them are going to be out for at least 2 weeks. This was the Thursday night football game. Dallas won 20-15 against the Giants, and they looked shaky. I mean, at best. I thought the Giants may pull it out, and I was kind of rooting for them secretly just because I can't stand Mike McCarthy. I've made that known on this show. But I do think that they lose the next 2 football games, and I'll tell you why. What has Dallas struggled with that it looked like they got fixed on Thursday night?
The run game.
The run game. Stopping the run game, right?
Oh, both.
Both the run game and stopping the run game, right? So losing your two biggest defensive guys to prevent people from running on you, that's not too good.
Especially when you've already struggled to stop it.
Especially when you're going up against a team like the Steelers who has Najee Harris that can run the football efficiently, but then you got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery coming in week 6 at the Lions, or actually you'll be at home, but still you got two running backs there that are likely going to run all over you. Do you think that the Steelers can pull it out? Do you think the Lions can pull it out? I do. I really do. You got week 7 bye for the Cowboys. Hopefully you can get your guys back going into week 8 against the 49ers at the 49ers. It's going to be a tough run, but I don't trust this Dallas football team, man. Touchdown all the way for me.
Only thing that gives me pause on there is if the Steelers were stupid enough to go back to Russell Wilson as their starter next week. I don't think they'll do it, but if they do, that throws everything out of the window, but we'll see.
We're going to wrap up your set of questions here. The 49ers are back to form, and they should be Super Bowl favorites now, touchdown or turnover.
Oh, I didn't realize the second half of this question. This is a split question. Back to form, touchdown. Super Bowl favorites, turnover. Right now, if you were going to go with a Super Bowl favorite in the NFC, it's got to be Minnesota because, one, they have the head-to-head win over them. But let me just focus on the positive side of it. They are back to form. We have seen what San Francisco looks like when they have all of their pieces. It feels like Brandon Ayuk is finally getting the training camp, rust off of him because he didn't play any. He was too busy worried about dollar signs. He got the dollar signs. He hasn't been performing. Finally, he's back. George Kittle, he was back and healthy, looked great today. Then he got injured again. We'll see what happens. Oh, the touchdown catch was beautiful.
George Kittle is constantly injured, by the way.
Yes. It's
and
just
he always
the ride.
Plays.
It's the ride you take with him. Right now, the San Francisco offense, even with all the injuries they've had, second in the league in yards a game. So that shows you they're productive even when they're missing people. When they miss people, Juwan Jennings goes off. You know what I mean? They have enough pieces. I can't say they're Super Bowl favorites, but when you've got Kyle Shanahan and you've got a quarterback like Brock Purdy who can run that offense, it sucks losing Christian McCaffrey. They're not going to be as good as they were last year, but they've shown they can still manage and win football games. They should have won the Rams football game. They got blindsided by the Vikings. Other than that, they've been cruising. The healthier they get, the better they get. The 49ers are going to be fine, and they did look back to form against the Patriots.
Yeah, and I think that Christian McCaffrey, after taking his long trip over to get a schnitzel from Germany and come back, I do think that they're saying that obviously he went for extra stem cells. That's kind of the rumor, and I think that to be true. I think that's their push to try to get him back in the later half of the season. They're going to keep him out as long as they have to hopefully have him for the playoffs. I don't blame him whatsoever. But then again, Jordan Mason seems to be doing the job just fine. I do think that this 49ers team is back to form. I agree with you. As far as the Super Bowl favorites, man, when they lost against the Vikings, I was like, what happened? The Vikings are a great team. So I don't think that's a loss that you can say like that's a surprising loss. It's actually like that was a hard fought game right there.
Yeah.
The loss against the Rams was a little questionable, especially since the Rams had like everybody on the IR.
And the 49ers had double-digit leads twice and let them come back. They threw the game away for sure.
That was an outcoached, outclassed game. Obviously, they handled the Patriots. They do have the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Chiefs, the Cowboys before their bye week in Week 9. That's going to be a tough run. But since the 49ers are back healthy, we think with Kittle, Debo, and Ayuk, it should be a pretty easy run at it. If this offense can hold up. By the way, Brock Purdy looked great on the scrambling today. Did you see some of the scrambling?
I feel like that's when he's at his best, actually. He's so much more athletic than people give him credit for.
He really is. But yeah, 49ers for me all the way. I agree with you. Touchdown on back to form. Let's just forget about the Super Bowl favorites for this segment.